So this is going to be a little bit different from if you've been to a lot of our other webinars. So Remotely is obviously a very new product, and it's something that we're launching a lot of content for right now. And I think that the way that I can be most helpful is by giving you kind of a rundown of the different options you have when it comes to, what products Remotely has, how you can best use it, best practices, and all of that. But I really want to make this a very focused session. So there aren't that many of us here today, which is great because it means that whoever is here can really steer the session wherever you want it to go. So I'm going to spend some time going through the different tools, why you might use them, how your team might connect them, and all of that. And during that time, feel free to send questions or send any chats or anything where you're like, oh, well, I would like to see this demoed, and I will either just demo it right here, or I will refer you to whatever webinar or content we have that has that. So we are going to get started. So Zoho Remotely, as I'm sure, first of all, I'm Victoria. I'm an evangelist at Zoho. So normally what that means is I travel around a lot and I give presentations and I build demos just to show people kind of what a platform can offer instead versus like just a set of applications. Obviously, right now, my job is less about that. Right now, we've been working on making a lot of video content and also webinars. So jumping into the content of the presentation, let's talk a little bit about what Zoho Remotely covers. So in general, Remotely is a solution to help you work from home. This is largely something that will be important for people who are not used to working from home, have not traditionally worked from home, and are now faced with having to work remotely and having to collaborate remotely. This might not be the situation all of you are in. It's possible some of you have been working from home for a long time and you're just using this as an opportunity to maybe streamline some things, make things run a little bit smoother. But in general, Remotely is definitely geared towards helping you get started working remotely. So there are a few different facets of this, and there are different ways we could categorize this, but the way that I think is kind of most helpful is we have productivity, and this is going to be tools that are really about centralizing things and making it really easy to interact with things. And then we have communication, and this is a really big one when it comes to working remotely. Obviously, most of us are used to being able to just get up and go talk to someone at their desk when it comes time to ask them a question, or being able to do most of our communication face-to-face and reserving email and chats for things that really need immediate assistance or need more documentation. So we need some tools that are going to help us really streamline the process of communicating with people when all of that communication is done online. And then we have collaboration, and this is kind of broad because in a way, all of these things are about collaboration, but in this case, I mean things that work towards making your team work together. So your team's working remotely, but that doesn't mean they don't need to get things done on a particular schedule. I'm sure a lot of you don't have schedules that can really slow down all that much. So we want tools that can kind of keep things on track as much as possible. And then support. So again, you can't stop supporting your customers just because you have to go home. So we want to include ways that make it easier to support those customers remotely. So the first thing we have is productivity tools. So these are two pretty different tools. WorkDrive is a very key part of this, and I think this is one of those tools where if you are using remotely, you should be using WorkDrive. So WorkDrive is a centralized repository for all of your files. It's unified file management, and you can really keep everything in one place, which means that even though you have these different tools you're using to manage your projects and to manage your documents, you can still access those same files from wherever you are across remotely. WorkDrive is also a team-focused document management tool. So if you think about something like Google Drive or any other document management that you're probably used to, it tends to be focused on the individual. So the idea is I'm going to make a document and then I will share it with someone else. So I am the owner of that document. But if I'm working in a team, a lot of the time, I'm not making a document to then share with people. I am collaborating on a document with a bunch of people. So WorkDrive is a really great place to come, or a really great place to start centralizing all of your work and just making it so everyone's on the same page. So you're not sending documents back and forth to people and ending up with a bunch of different copies of the same document in everyone's email. And then we have Showtime, which is what we're using right now. So Showtime is a couple of things. Originally, it was really there for more in-person engagement. So if I was giving you this presentation in person, I might use Showtime to present it so that while I'm on stage, you could be sending me questions from your phone. But now, obviously, we're also using it for webinars. So as you can see, you can ask me questions, I can send you polls, I can send you handouts, and you can send me chats. And we can manage all of that online. And this can be really great for a variety of reasons, both for working with clients, but also even if you're just working with your team and someone on your team needs to give a presentation, this can be a good way to manage everything. Showtime is also, I'm not sure if I think it just launched. If not, it's going to launch soon. We're working on an LMS as well, like a full learning management system. So that will also be under Showtime. So then we have communication tools, and this is really, I kind of think, the bread and butter of Remotely. I know that it's not necessarily where you're going to have the most files. It's not where you're going to have the most information or data, but it is, I think, the highest touch point. You're going to be going into your communication tools frequently because as we are working remotely, it is more and more important that we be communicating with people as much as possible. And the kind of two ways this turns into is either we can have, audio or video calls, which we could do with Zoho Meeting, or we can use Click. So Click is our chat tool. So if you've ever used Slack, it's very similar to that. So you can chat with people either one-on-one or maybe in a channel. And you can set up channels and groups based on certain things. So maybe you have a channel that's for daily updates, or because we're trying to keep connected, maybe not just in a work way, maybe you're going to set up a channel where people can post pictures of their houseplants or their pets as they're spending more time working at home. And you can kind of continue that level of community there. And then we have Zoho Meeting, which is our video conferencing tool. So that's somewhere you could go for a more robust video conferencing platform. When it comes to one-on-one audio and video calls, Click can also handle a lot of that. And it's just a really great way to centralize a lot of your communication because a lot of things get sent out as an email that do not necessarily need to be an email. Or worse, a lot of things someone will call a meeting for, and then you'll realize halfway through the meeting, this did not need to be a whole meeting. I just could have messaged this person once and this would have been resolved yesterday. So Click is a really good resource to have there. And another reason that I think it can be kind of important going beyond just the idea of being able to chat with people is it becomes increasingly hard to have a work-life balance when you're working from home all the time. And so having a separation between your workplace communication and your personal communication, so Click for work communication and text for personal communication, can make a really big difference in making it clear that you respect your employees, your coworkers' privacy, and the distinction between the their personal lives and their work lives. So then we have project management tools. So these are tools that are a little more robust than what I initially thought when I learned that we had project management tools. So these are not necessarily tools that you're going to use if you're just looking for kind of a daily task board or that kind of thing. That is definitely something you can configure. And I have talked to customers who use sprints in that way or who use projects in that way. But just fair warning, you're just going to have to go in and turn off some features, which is pretty easy to do. And I can show you later if people are interested in the project management side of things. So the two options we have here are Zoho Projects and Zoho Sprints. So Zoho Projects is exactly probably what you would think of when you think of a project management, a full company project management tool. So it's waterfall project management, which is a style that is pretty much the most common you're going to see. So you have your project at the top, and then you have that get broken down into milestones, which are broken down into task lists, which are broken down into tasks. So it's a very structured way of managing projects. All of those tasks are linked together with dependencies because there are a lot of things you need to do where if you can't do step one, you're definitely not going to be able to do step three. And so that's a really great way to keep these really big scale projects kind of on track, especially if it's something where you've done it multiple times before, you know how long it's supposed to take, and you're just trying to keep things rolling. Projects is a really, really great way to do that. And then we have Zoho Sprints. So Sprints is a tool that I also really like, but it is a little more niche. So Sprints uses agile project management, which can be very useful, especially for something like a development or a design team. So I kind of like to think of it like if you've built houses before and you're just trying to get more consistent about building houses, projects is the way to go. But if you're trying to design a house or build a house for the first time, then sprints might be a little better, just because you don't necessarily know how long step one is going to take or how long step three is going to take. So agile is much more about adapting to change. So if you are interested in project management, which we'll see later, I will definitely ask what you're more interested in. I think projects fits more people. Sprints is definitely interesting as well. And if you are in development or design, or if you just kind of heard that and you're like, well, that sounds like what I need, I would love to hear about that. And we are going to be doing more project management focused presentations in the future. So then we have the Office Suite, and this is a very fundamental and kind of basic part of any kind of workplace. And I think it's the one that kind of gets taken for granted. So within the Office Suite, we have Zoho Writer, which is our word processor. We have Zoho Sheet, which is a spreadsheet builder. And then we have Zoho Show, which is what I built this presentation on. And so it's just your classic, word processor, spreadsheet, presentation builder. But they all integrate with other Zoho products in a very streamlined way. So like I said, I think WorkDrive is one of the best things you can start using to centralize everything as much as you can. And all of these work really well with WorkDrive and have a lot of great collaboration tools built right in. And then we have support. So within support, we have Zoho Assist, which is our remote kind of customer support tool. And then, so, you can do a screen share with someone. On some computers, you can have the person take over and, do any kind of troubleshooting they need to do. And then we have Zoho Lens, which is our AR solution generally for field work. So if you have a camera, you would essentially be able to show someone on the other end, oh, here's what the problem is, and they would be able to show you how to fix that. So we have just gone through all of these different sections, and this is not exactly how this poll is set up, but I am going to send out this poll. And I can explain this if you're a little confused about it. I would love to know what you are most interested in. Are you most interested in communication and collaboration, project management, or remote support? Some of these things go really well together, so I can kind of combine some of these demos. Heads up if we do it looks like we have one for project management and one for, oh, a couple for project management and one for communication and collaboration. So I'm going to show you a little bit of a Remotely demo account we have. And then I'm going to hop into a different account to show you some of the project management tools we have. Okay, so it looks like we have plenty of interest in both communication and collaboration and project management. So I want to show you both of those things. And I will start with communication and collaboration. But I would love also if any of you have kind of ideas of what you're struggling with when it comes to communication or with project management, if you could send those either as questions or in the chat, then I'll make sure to focus on those as we go into the demo. So I will screen share this to show you. So right now we are hopping into a Remotely demo account. And I will let you know now, just because this is a much newer product, this demo account does not have a huge amount of data in it, but I do want to show you kind of the different features we have in here and what it's going to look like. So coming into remotely.zoho.com, you're going to have these different sections. And these sections are mostly there to kind of point you in the right direction. And this can especially be useful when you're trying to get your employees to get a good idea of where they're starting. But let's just jump into a couple of these, and then I'll show you projects kind of on its own. So first up, we have Click. Again, sorry, it's pretty empty. But when I come in here, I can see that we have this chat, and I can have all of these chats as we go. And that is good and interesting. And like we have here, this like daily briefing channel. So a bunch of people would be able to always be putting stuff into this channel and keep up to date. But the thing that's much more interesting about Click is that you can actually access it from anywhere. So like this bottom bar right here, this is Click. So I can come in here and I can send a message to Victoria and say, I need the reports. And I'll be able to see any response right here as well. So no matter what application I'm currently in, I can communicate with people right away just using this bar down here. So that I think is kind of the most important part of this, especially I think building these channels where people can come in and leave information about how things are going, or even just chat, just to kind of keep this level of community. It can be a really valuable way to keep people talking to each other. So then we have Meeting as well, which is web conferencing mostly. And from there, you could manage any remote video meetings or audio meetings that you needed to do. So we're actually going to go into WorkDrive really quick. So I know I kind of listed WorkDrive, and here we have WorkDrive is a little bit separate from the Office Suite. I tend to think of them as very linked. So WorkDrive can support a lot of different file types. So you could use WorkDrive without using any of the Zoho Office Suite. It's just not necessarily how I would use it. I've been using, we use the Office Suite all the time. We use WorkDrive. And I do think that the integrations between those make it really useful. So I can come in here and I can actually see all of my folders. And this is going to look pretty familiar. I can come in here and see Brandon's working from home file, which is great. Brandon has a lot of great hobbies that he's picking up. Wow, bread making. I can come in here and leave a comment and say, wow, me too. Because everyone's making bread right now. And I can also actually come in here and use track changes to delete things, be like, sorry, no video games for you. And I really have a lot of power to collaborate on this document without necessarily, deleting any of this work. So this is a very good word processor for collaboration for a few different reasons. One is the stuff I just showed you. Another, so as you probably noticed, this is a pretty empty screen. which I'm now so used to that sometimes I go into other word processors and get overwhelmed by how cluttered they are. But we have this whole sheet, this whole tool right here, which can give me a lot more power over what it is I'm doing. So that's all available right there. I can merge things with different information from different applications. Like I said, I can come in and do all of that. And then I can actually go into review mode where I just go and see all the comments and I can go through them one by one. So when I'm working on a really long document, I think that this is one of the most useful things because I send it out to all my coworkers, they all look at it, they leave me a bunch of comments, and I can just go in here and one by one knock them out. And then we have distribute. So you can export these files as a lot of different file types. So I could download it as a .docx, PDF, or any of these other things. And this, I think, is very important. And one thing that I will probably show when we talk about projects is we can actually take a .docx file and you can convert it into a writer file and write with it here and then send it back as a .docx file. So you can really collaborate with not only the people you work with who are using Zoho tools, but also your clients who are likely not using Zoho tools. So that's all of that right there. And then, we also have our presentation builder, which can be very useful. We won't do a whole presentation, but this again can be really useful. And this is all just to give you an idea of how much you can do just from WorkDrive. So here, this should all look pretty familiar. And then we could do the same with a sheet or anything else. So that is the My Folders section. And as you can see, there's a lot more stuff in here. So there are a lot of different ways that you can manage your files within WorkDrive. So one thing I can do is I can set up my own folders, but other things I can do include setting up team folders. So there's two different kinds of folders in general. There are org folders and team folders. Org folders are folders that are information that maybe not everyone's accessing all the time, but you want everyone to be able to access. So you would put things in there where maybe you were collaborating on it with one team, but you knew you would have to talk to another team later and you don't want to have to grant them permission. But then we have team folders because a lot of things you're working on are just going to be within a team, and you can manage these teams on their own and then create these team folders which have a lot of permissions preset. So one of the big value points of WorkDrive is that you have a lot of control over provisioning and access management. So when we come in here, you can see, all right, well, this is the general one. I'm the admin. We have all these different people. I can come in here and see team folder details. I can see all my different mention, all my members. I could add a description, and I could go into settings and change any of these things. So you can also allow uploads via email and just have them email things to this address, and then that'll get uploaded to WorkDrive. You can allow downloads or not. So if you're working with confidential information and you're worried about your employees being able to download that information and distribute it elsewhere, you can just turn that off so people can't download it. And you can also convert files. So you can set all of that in here. And then we have the trash. So one of the big worries when it comes to converting all of your document storage to this unified place is like, oh, well, what if somebody just throws something away on accident? So the way that the permissions are set up, only the highest level has the ability to empty the trash. So if, one of the organizers or an editor were to try and delete something, it would just get moved to this trash bin. And then only I, whom the admin, would be able to actually empty the trash and move it out of there. So we also have information in this activity folder, and you can deal with external sharing and all that. So as you can see, we have a lot of control over everything that we put into WorkDrive and also how we manage it. So that's kind of the general WorkDrive and the and the Office suite. So I hope that gives you a good idea there when it comes to communication and all of that. And now, again, feel free to send questions throughout, and I will get to them at the end. But now I'm going to show you a little bit of projects. So we had some people who said that they were interested in project management. If you want to shoot me a chat or send in a question that says specifically what kind of project management you do, I can tailor this to that. But first I'll give you just kind of an overview of how projects works, what you can do with it, and how it integrates. So projects, though this isn't in the communication and collaboration section, I do think that it has a lot to do with communication. So projects is set up not only to be a place to hold all of your projects, but actually kind of a centralized hub where you can come in and view everything in your company. You can see your whole calendar, you can see all of your reports. Really, when it comes to waterfall project management, which is what this uses, the big strength comes from the fact that you can zoom all the way out and see all of your projects across your whole company, or you can zoom all the way in to get all of this different specialized information about this one task or about this one subtask that happened and what documents are related with that. So you can really get a full picture without losing context, as well as those little microscopic details that you need to not lose track of. So if we go into one of these projects, we're going to see a few different things. We'll actually check out this one that has some more data in it. So this dashboard is, I kind of think of it as like the place to start your day. So if you are in charge of project delivery, you're going to come in here just at the beginning of your day and you're going to say, all right, what's on fire? What do I need to deal with right now before I do anything else today? So the dashboard doesn't give you a ton of super complicated or if you want to drill down into your data and get more specific information, that's not going to happen in the dashboard. But you can get a lot of information about just kind of the daily goings on. So, this is how many tasks are closed versus how many are open in this project. And that can be useful. And then we have this budget status chart, which I think is very important because it gives us a lot of information about how we're doing that we might not necessarily see. So say you have a 6-month project going on and you're a month in and you've used 30% of your budget. On one chart, it might look like you're doing fine because you're not over budget yet. But what you need to know is, hey, you've only gone a sixth of the way into your project, but you've already spent a third of your budget. Here's how much money you're actually going to end up spending if you keep on this path. So this budget status thing is basically giving us as much of that information as it can. So the information we get here is we get the budget. So this is what you input when you are building the project. You're going to say, this is how much money I can spend on this. And then you have your planned hours. So this is based on how many work hours you've entered. And I'll show you how we do that. And pro tip, if you are considering using projects, my number one recommendation is get your work hours inputted as you are making every task when you're first setting up the project. Otherwise, you'll have to do what I do out and go through your entire project and add work hours in after the fact. And it is not great. So enter your work hours right away. That'll give you this very nice bar chart, and it'll make it so that all of your reports will just run without you. It's a very set it and forget it kind of situation. You set it up once, you put in all the hours, and then everything else just handles itself. So then you have, and this is what you have logged hours for. And again, I'll show you how to do that in just a minute. But as you can see, we have kind of this different plan versus actual. But then this is the forecasted. So this is how much money it thinks we're going to end up spending if we keep on this trajectory. And then we have the amount that we've invoiced. So as you can see, there's a difference between our budget, our planned, and our forecasted. So that's what we want to get kind of in one straight line. And you can see that all just on this front page. And I didn't set any of this up either. This is out of the box. and it is a great chart. So there is some stuff you can do to customize this page. So for example, I could move things around if I wanted to. I could just delete a chart if I'm like, that's not useful. And I can bring in some other charts, which, sorry, right here. I can come in here and I can turn them on and off. So the dashboard, again, very useful, a very good place to come in and just check in and see how everything's going. A little less customizable than a full, analytics tool though. So that's that. The next thing we have is the feed. And again, when you're working from home, I think that this can actually be a really valuable tool. So this is just a list of everyone who's done anything. Every action that has happened on this project is showing up in this feed. So this is a really great place to check in. At the beginning of the day, you're like, all right, well, what do I need to know to catch up? You can come into the feed and just take a look at the last few things and be like, all right, I know what happened, just so you don't miss anything. And I could also start a discussion right here and say, we need to contact Bob about the printers, who has his number. And then everyone would be able to discuss that right here, and this will show up in all of my employees' feeds as well. So then getting into, as I described, we have the whole project, right? So we saw that global reports thing in the home screen. That's kind of the most zoomed out you can get. Next is that dashboard, that's zooming in a little bit. Then we zoom in a little bit more and we come into milestones. So the Toronto IT deployment is made up of 3 milestones. We have pre-deployment, hardware installation, and network deployment. So another way to think about this, if you're building a house and that's the project, an active milestone might be lay the foundation, build the walls, install the plumbing. So if we go into any of these, it's then going to be broken down further into these task lists. And as you can see, we're getting data input here as well. And then when I drill in a little bit deeper, I get all of my tasks. And as you can see, I'm just getting more and more information the deeper into this task that I get. So within this task, you can see a lot of information. So I'm going to go over to the task list, just so you can see kind of an example of a lot of them. So here we can see, all right, so we're in our task list. We can see the task, what task list it's in, and I've done this for a while and I cannot say the word task list, what task list it's in, and what milestone that task list is in. So over here, we're going to get information that is a little bit more every day. So information you might need right away is, all right, well, what's this called? Who's the owner? Is this open or closed? And then tags. So tags are a very new feature, so we haven't added them into this yet, but they can be very useful, especially if you're running a lot of projects at once, because you might need to go through and sort your tasks or your projects by tags. I definitely recommend using that if you're worried about how you're going to be organizing these things. And then you can see the start date, due date. And then as we come over here, we get information that you might not need as much. So the priority, who it's created by, how completed it is. And then we come over here to this very important information, but information that you're probably not going to need most of the time. So here we have our planned work hours. So this is information. This is what I was saying. You want to input this immediately as soon as you start working on your project. And that's where all of the data when it comes to reports is going to be coming from. And then we have the time log. So this is, all right, so this is how many hours we think it should take. How many hours did it actually take? Could be more, could be less. And then is it more or less? And that'll tell us right here. And then as we come over here, it'll tell us, all right, billable hours, how much it's going to cost, what the cost variance is, how much it thinks it'll end up costing us. So all of that kind of money stuff, the stuff you won't need as often, but is still very important, is housed kind of on the other side of that task. So I'm going to click into one of these tasks so we can take a look at it. And like I said, something that is really important is not only what needs to happen when, but also maybe what did happen. So if there was, if someone reaches out to me and they're like, where is this document that happened when you did this thing? I can go back into the project and find the task, and I should be able to find that document. So I can come in here and I have a lot of information about this. So I can leave comments. So for example, if I was doing this project originally and I was like, oh, we had an extra bit of wire, I could leave that as a comment, which someone could then see. And, there could be a problem or something else. And you can just leave comments about that here so that you can track it all the way back. Then we also have subtasks and log hours. So log hours, there are a couple different ways you can log hours here. This is one of them. You just hit log hours, and you can only log hours for yourself or for your employees, for the people who report to you. So you could, I could come in here and log 4 hours, I'll add those, and now those are here, and those will be in the timesheet module as well. So we have all that information, great. And then we can come into documents. So right now, right here, I have this photo release document. And if I'm coming in here and I have a question about this, maybe I want to take a look at this document. And as you can see, it's actually, even though it's a .docx file, it's just opening immediately in Writer. And you can see that there are some comments and some changes made on this document. Now, if this was maybe something that I needed to send out to a client, I could just send it right back out as a .docx file, all of the different versions in WorkDrive as well. So there's some other stuff in here. Dependency is really the main other thing that I think might be important. Sorry, this is an older project. There we go. So we can see not only, all right, well, what is this, but also what has to happen after this that can't happen until this is done. And this is especially important because if I know today that I'm like, I can't get this done today, but it's due today, I need to know, all right, well, who needs to know that they can't get done what they need to get done tomorrow? That's going to be delayed too. And you can find all of that information in here. And if I were to change the date of any of these things, then it would actually push out those other ones as well. So this one's closed, so we can't change it, but we move this one around and it'll move any corresponding things around with it as well. So that is the kind of core of what I wanted to show you in here. We also have the calendar, which I'm sorry, is very boring right now. Let me see if I can find you. Yeah, there we go. So we have this project going on, and there's a lot of information we have about, like what needs to happen when. You can also filter this so I could just see stuff that's assigned to me and no one else, which can be really useful. And you can also track leave. So if someone's going to be out of town, and if you happen to also have Zoho people, then you can actually integrate the leave tracker with projects in here. And then let's take a quick look at some of the reports. So this is, I'll show you this really quick before we go in there. So like I said, if you are doing kind of smaller work or you want to use this and you see that there's a lot of features and you're like, well, I just don't need all that. It is very easy to turn off tabs in projects, and I highly recommend doing it. I recommend coming in here, figuring out what you want, and just hiding everything else. And you can actually make it so that it will always hide all of those things in the past or in the future. So that is kind of my main recommendation for if you're like, I just want a Kanban view, you would just come in here, only turn on, the tasks and the milestones module, and you can view it in a Kanban board and just turn off everything else. So then we have the reports. And when you come in here, we have a couple of different things. So we have the Gantt chart. This is very important, especially for any project that's kind of long-term and has a lot of dependencies and a lot of contributors. So like I was explaining before, if something gets put off today, that means probably the whole project's going to end late. So I need to be able to tell that right now so that I can get to my clients and tell them, hey, this is when it's actually going to be done. So they're not, like in the lurch, not knowing when something's going to be delayed. So it's just a really great way to visualize that. And I think it's kind of one of the main reports you're going to be coming back to. But a couple of other important ones are, sorry, I should have picked a newer project. Well, we have resource utilization. So this one's actually getting an update very soon. So it's not going to look like this for long. But the basic idea of this report is that you can see, all right, well, how many hours is this person assigned to work versus how many are they actually available to work this week? So if I know Karen wants 40 hours this week and I haven't given her any, and I have to make a new task, I might give her those hours. And you can look at it, you can really break it down like that. So this can be really useful, especially, during the holidays. It's really easy to, well, just in general, anytime when your company is really busy or really not busy, it's easy to kind of unevenly pool labor. So it can be nice to just come in here and check and be like, oh, I'm not giving Sarah any hours. Let's give her more of those. So the rest of these are pretty similar to things we've seen in the dashboard. So that is probably where that is going. That is probably all I have for you when it comes to projects. Again, here we have the chat, and I can come in here and chat with anyone right from projects. So you don't have to worry about that, slipping away. And then there's also information. There's also a lot of power you have over users and who can see what and what clients can see and all of that. So I have a couple of questions asking for the recording. Yes, this is being recorded, and yes, it should send out to all of you. But yeah, so that is the bulk of what I have for you right now. If you have any questions, please feel free to send them right now. I'm happy to go back through anything I showed before, or I can also point you towards another webinar or another resource that might be able to help you a little better.